Hello everybody, General James Game here, and welcome back to another video. Now first off, before we begin, I would like to apologise for not uploading any videos for nearly a year now. I was unprepared and too busy to upload for that time. Now, as most of you viewers know who are subscribed to my channel, I make Godzilla animations. And with the upcoming Godzilla vs. Kong, I wanted to make a video to analyse these two destructive monsters' abilities and see who would win in a fight to the death. Now before we rush into any further detail, I just want to inform you that we are looking at the characters' abilities themselves, not environmental benefits such as buildings, trees, rocks, or anything of the above. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into the first factor. Now, as we all know, to win a fight, most fighters have to have very high physical strength. Without it, the fighter might as well forfeit before things get bloody. And as we've seen in the movie, Godzilla possesses remarkable strength. He was able to lift and carry the female Muto with just a single hand. And given that its approximate weight is 90,000 tons, we can assume Godzilla is able to lift more than double that, mainly because he was able to pick it up no problem. Kong, on the other hand, we see him drag out of the water a giant octopus with one hand, estimating its weight to be around 20,000 tons. We can assume Kong can lift a similar weight of 40,000 tons, seeing as though he had trouble carrying it out of the water. Now that that factor is complete, we can move on to the next one. Being in a fight not only requires the fighter to be physically strong, but also able to withstand massive amounts of damage. And if you can walk through a barbecuing lake of fire, you know you're tough, especially if you're Kong. But let's be honest, Godzilla could do that. I mean, he lights cities on fire every time he invades one. Plus, in the movie, he took way more serious punishment. In the fight between the male and the female Muto, he was stabbed multiple times, and some of those strikes even drew blood. Also, as Kong is covered in a thin layer of fur, which is soft and easy to break through, Godzilla, covered in this scaly skin, trumps Kong in defense. On to the next factor. Now, in most fights, speed is a very important component. A fighter's ability to dodge attacks and respond before the enemy has time to recover is key if victory is to be assured. And when it comes to Kong and Godzilla, Godzilla is more a tank that uses brutal fighting strategies to win. Kong, we've seen him when he fights, he jumps around and uses mainly speed to his advantage. So it would be easy to assume Kong would win on the speed side. And with that factor done, we'll move on to the next one. Now with this factor, it's going to be hard to identify and see who will win on this one, but for the time, we'll just do it in current events at this point. And with Godzilla and Kong being massively sized kaijus, it's probably going to be one of the most important factors to this fight. Now, at the moment, Godzilla stands at a whopping 350 feet tall, towering over Kong's size of only 100 feet tall. But in the movie of Kong Skull Island, it is pointed out that Kong is only a juvenile and is still growing. So we're not too sure how this factor is going to work when it comes to 2020, because Kong Skull Island takes place in 1970s or 60s. But according to some simple calculations and the theory from Game Theory or Film Theory's channel, we can assume that Kong will be standing at a size of around 180 feet tall by the time it comes to 2020. But even at that size, he's still 2 times smaller than what Godzilla's height at the moment is. Plus, there's every possibility Godzilla will continue to grow as well as they make their way up to the fight. With this factor a little bit unfinished, we'll move on to the next, but for the time, we'll put this one as Godzilla as the winner. Now, in most fights, we all know that stamina is probably the most important key aspect to a fight, mainly because it's defined as the user's ability to continue fighting for a certain amount of time. And with this factor, we'll base it off the information we have gathered from defense, mainly because events like fights happened or continued after these events. Anyway, we'll start off with Godzilla in this factor. Now, the first time we see him fight, or in general throughout the entire movie, is in Honolulu, where he's fighting off the male Muto. After a bit of time, the male Muto gives up and flies off back out into the ocean, with Godzilla coming to swim after him as well. And this swim would have probably most likely taken approximately a day or two, according to the film. And the next time they meet up is in San Francisco, and they start fighting again. But the Muto eventually flees again, not out of San Francisco, but out of the fight. And assuming this fight took from lunchtime to late afternoon, and to approximately evening, we can assume that Godzilla was probably fighting for nearly 6 or more hours, until he goes and fights the female Muto just after the female Muto has laid her eggs. After a bit of time, Godzilla seems to have the upper hand against the female and eventually almost kills her until the male Muto comes back and saves her. Then the two Mutos start teaming up against Godzilla by stabbing him multiple times with their arms. And let's be honest, if you're lying down on the ground and someone was beating you up multiple times by kicking you or either punching you, you'd probably be very well out of stamina. However, in Godzilla's case, a couple minutes after the female realizes her eggs have been destroyed by the DoD team, she moves over towards Ford Brody, who is now lying down, barely able to move after being hit by the explosion. Godzilla comes out of nowhere eventually and starts attacking the female Muto as if he wasn't even damaged from before. So it'd be pretty easy to identify Godzilla as the winner at this point, because Kong's story is a little bit more different. After being burnt to a crisp in a fiery lake, the massive skullcrawler arrives and attacks Kong. Now we can tell that this massive skullcrawler isn't very interested in Kong, because he basically just walks over Kong and then starts heading towards the military and the others. Now, assuming the chase between the skullcrawler and the humans lasted from very early in the morning, where the sun was not up, till late in the morning when the sun was up, we can assume Kong was unconscious for about 6 hours, until he eventually got up and started fighting the skullcrawler and saving the humans. So seeing as though Kong was unconscious for 6 hours and Godzilla kept fighting for more than that long, we can assume Godzilla would win on the stamina side of the fight. Now, with that very long explanation out of the way, let's move on to the next factor. Now, intelligence doesn't really play a role in most fights, but if you consider intelligence as the ability to understand your opponent's weaknesses and predict their possible outcomes, then you could pretty much say that's an important role to a fight. Now, if you consider Kong and Godzilla's intelligence, they're pretty much the same level, because Godzilla has 2 brains and is able to identify his opponent's weaknesses. And Kong's relations with an ape/gorilla, you can basically say that they're both of equal intelligence. So, with that very short factor done, let's move on to the next and final factor. When it comes to a fight between massive kaiju, you can often expect there to be special abilities, such as with Godzilla, he has the atomic breath, a giant ray of pure radiation, which can pretty much blow up just about anything. However, with Kong, one of the only abilities he really has is the ability to snap jaws of giant monsters. Plus Godzilla has a tail which he could basically use to whip anything out of his way. So it'd be easy to assume Godzilla would win on this front. Now with all these factors identified, let's tally them up and see what the results are. Now with all these tallies tallied up, we can easily say that Godzilla would win in a fight between himself and Kong, due to the reasons of a much more higher level of strength, stamina, defense, size, special abilities, and neutral intelligence. If you found this video informative, please do leave a like, a subscription if possible, and also make sure to leave a comment down below suggesting who you think might win. Also, if you have any preferences to other videos of versus matches, do leave another comment down below suggesting 2 characters that might be good to fight against. But for the time, recruits, you are dismissed. Take care.